Well, let's get started with Illustrator. We're going to jump in with the program and explore the workspace so that you'll be able to move around more effectively. When I'm launching Illustrator, I've got a shortcut. You might have something a little different set up on your system, but either way, once you're in Illustrator, you're going to see this workspace, and whether you are brand new to Illustrator or you're self-taught or you're migrating from another version, it's a great idea to just get familiar with the layout and what things are called in the vocabulary. And first of all, we've got what's called the application bar. And it has on the menu, and it has some other tools like accessing the bridge and arranging multiple files. It also has a workspace switcher. And right now the default workspace is called Essentials, but you could actually jump to different workspaces, for example Layout, and you'll see how it's changing the panels. It actually can change a few other features, but primarily what you're going to see is a change of the panels. And the panels is maybe Adobe word for toolbars if you think that, those words, but panels is what they call them. So we have this in here, and if you're migrating from a previous version of Illustrator, one of the things you might notice right away is that it's a lot darker. And actually in Illustrator CS6 there's been a lot of fine-tuning of the interface, and so some of the major changes in CS6 is just making the interface tidier and more efficient, more flexible, and that includes this brightness. I'm going to go in here to Edit, Preferences, and we'll go into our different preferences in here, and you can see the preference called User Interface right here, and right now we've got this preference of medium dark, and I can actually make it very dark or very light, which is more like the original versions of Illustrator, and I kind of like it in this middle one, and you can actually choose the medium dark or medium light, and depending on your environment, your lighting at your office, or even the products that you're working on, some of these different preferences can be really helpful for you. But let's go ahead and choose OK, and we'll come back here to our different elements in the screen here. We've got our application bar, and then right below the control panel will highlight as different elements are active. I'm going to go ahead and quickly open a file. Just open something up here. And when I open the file, you can see the control panel has more features, and it's also going to change depending on what tool is active. So if you choose a different tool, you're going to have slightly different features, and also if you click on different objects, you're going to have different features. The control panel has been streamlined in version CS6, so it's a lot more efficient, again tidier in this version. That may be the key word for this, is the tidier. Well, let's go look at the panels, because this is really going to be how you move around in Illustrator. You're going to be making sure you're going to choose the right tool and access what you need. And we've got some different panels, and if I hover over them, I'm going to get a name. Right now I'm just seeing the icon. Now you can actually expand this out and see the icon and the label, but I like having just the icon. It gives me more real estate. Also, these panels are docked, and right above there's a symbol, kind of looks like a double arrow or a chevron, and that lets you expand all the panels so you can see them all out. So they're docked, but you can actually see all the tools. And that's handy, except there's so many panels in here, it gets a little crowded. I'm going to go ahead and collapse it. So instead of expanding all the panels, you can expand one at a time simply by clicking on it. Now these panels can also be rearranged. So if I were to click on this again here, and I look at the layers panel, for example, and there's the layers panel, and I use this panel quite a bit. Well, what I might want to do is pull this out, and I can pull it by the tab here, and that's going to float the panel or undock the panel, and I can actually pull it up and drop it back up higher. Now what you're noticing is as I'm moving it around, a blue area lights up. That's the drop zone, and I can determine where I'm going to put it based on what the blue light is showing me. So if I drop it right here, it's going to be a second dock. Sometimes they call that a double dock, and I could collapse that. I'm going to pull that out again. Or I could pull it in with a group of panels. You can see how the blue is positioning it right in that group. And oops, that didn't quite get in the group. There we go. So now it's grouped with these. So you'll see when I pull this out, colors, layers, and color guide, how they're grouped together. Pull that out again. Or I can even drop it as its own group. There we go. And actually, what I like is having the layers and the artboards, put those together here, And they were together before, but instead of being at the bottom, they're at the top. And I like that because I can pull this down and I can see a lot more of the details, right? And just kind of put that all together. Now I can also reset these. So as I'm experimenting with the different panels, no worries, we can easily reset. And actually this is an improvement. One of the things in CS6 is that the workflows are organized in a more task-based and they're more logical namings for the workflow. So they've really been streamlined. You can see essentials and layout and painting. And you can now reset these workflows. So it's a lot more like the other products in the Creative Suite, how Illustrator handles workflows. So I just reset everything back here. Now what I'm going to do is actually create my own workflow. There's an option here to, or excuse me, workspace. There's an option here to create workspaces, and I want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few changes. I'm going to put this up to the top again like I had before. I'm going to pull these colors and make them a second dock. Here's some more colors. These are all related to colors. They've got color, color guides, swatches. Let's pull these options here. And we've got appearance and such. I'm going to expand these and put the drag these back in. And now what we've done is we've consolidated these or grouped these panels here. And now we have a lot more room for our layers and our artboard, as well as accessing the appearance, and I can see my layers and my appearance at the same time. Really nice. Now the Windows menu is where you're going to access all these panels. And so if you're not sure where they are, you can always go to the Windows menu and turn them on. And there may even be some panels in here that you want. For example, maybe you want the Magic Wand panel. This gives you some options for selecting. Another panel I find myself using a lot is the links panel. I'm going to bring that in. And actually brought in links and actions. And I'm just going to go ahead and dock those over here. And you can get the idea as you're going through. And you might have more panels visible or not depending on the resolution of your monitor. I got to scroll down here to see more options as well. But here's my transform, and I really like the transform, align, and pathfinder. In fact, what I'm going to do is put those up here next to my, actually I take that back. I'm going to pull that out again. I didn't want to group them. I wanted to make them their own group. I'm going to put them up and watch for the drop zone a little bit higher because they aren't that wide or that tall. They don't take that much room. But there they go. And as you start using Illustrator, you're going to decide how you want to customize this. But the beautiful thing is you can now save this workspace. I'm going to create a new workspace. And I'm just going to use my initials. And I'll put a 1 in there because I often have more than one workspace that I want. So I can click on that. And if I go back to Essentials, Illustrator is remembering how I left Essentials. So I'm going to go ahead and reset Essentials, and that goes back to the default standards here. But I can come back and I can access the workspace I just created, and I can jump right in. Now there are, like I said, several improvements in the interface with the CS6. And we saw the darkness and brightness, we saw the workspace switcher, but a few other improvements include things like inline editing. So if I were in my layers panel and I wanted to rename a layer, for example, I can actually just double click and start renaming the layer. That's a nice improvement. And we saw some things like the control panel, how it's tidier. Well, actually the transform panel and also the transparency panel have a few improvements. And to see them, I'm going to go ahead and use the panel menu here, right over the side. I'm going to go ahead and choose Show Options. That's going to show me all the pieces in here. I like having that available. And so one of the things that's new is that I can easily choose Align to Pixel Grid and Scale, Strokes, and Effects right together in the same spot. I don't have to, that scale, strokes, in fact, I don't have to go into another tool to access it. So little things like that, just making it easier to find the tools with fewer clicks. And then even when you open up dialog boxes, so I'm going to go ahead and just open up a dialog box for our scale here. We've got some uniformity in here, and for example, the preview button is in more dialog boxes, and these options for copy, OK, cancel down the bottom. You're going to see some consistency throughout all of your settings, which just makes it, again, a little bit simpler and easier to navigate in this version of CS6. And also, these are all keyboard accessible. If you're a keyboard person, you can access them and just tap the Alt key, and you can see the hotkeys show up as another way of accessing through. I'm going to go and cancel this out. And of course, there are just a few other little tips and tricks that make it easier to navigate through your workspace. But the real highlight here is that you open up Illustrator and then you can work through using the different tools, and now it's your turn to open it up and start exploring. It's time for a pop quiz. What is the name of the default workspace in Adobe Illustrator CS6? A, Essentials, B, My Workspace, C, Window, D, Switcher. The answer is A. Essentials is one of the workspaces, just like layout and typography and painting, that you can reset or you can access, and you can even create your own.